All right, hello, this is Wmpyr here to talk about ancient fencing. So first of all, I need to cite my sources. I never took like official fencing classes, um, so just want to make that clear. I'm not a fencer. In my Filipino martial arts training, historically, to me, it is very clear that it has a very strong influence from Spanish fencing, and I believe that it's extremely beneficial to understand what I call ancient fencing, to understand your Filipino martial arts better, and not just that, also for the purpose of self defense, to understand self defense better. So, the first thing is we're talking about the transition from the ancient battlefield to historical civil life. So, at first, they're warring states, this is like the medieval times, lots of lords battling each other, kingdom versus kingdom type thing, and then the emergence of a country. Once that happens, now we're talking about a different lifestyle, and in that lifestyle, you have a chance of being successful doing whatever skill it is that you have, like pottery or a baker, or whatever it is that you do, you have a chance at succeeding there. And in that lifestyle, you're not going to be walking around with a spear or wearing armor. No. In the ancient battlefield times, you never know when your village was going to get raided, and you guys were going to be plundered and attacked. So you had to have those nearby. And when they had a village meeting, and they're like, "Hey, there's a massive army headed this way. We got to join up and fight." You had to do it. So it's just a different life. But the main point there is that in this civil life, they're not wearing armor, and they're not walking around with shields in their everyday life. And rather than a spear or a mace or a battle axe, which those are cumbersome, it becomes, rather than a long sword, it becomes a smaller, thinner sword, and something much more convenient like a dagger. And instead of a battle axe, it might become like a hatchet. It's much easier for carry, and doesn't get in the way of normal life. That's what it turned into. Okay, so that's my main point there. So when you are in a self-defense situation in the city, so this is not soldiers versus soldiers, I'm talking about a self-defense situation, then in that case, chances are you're not wearing armors. But if you have a weapon and they have a weapon and you guys go at it, there's not going to be a victor. Okay, the chances of both of you really messing yourselves up is extremely high. So just want to say, just want to talk about that. So if that's the case, I think you're going to fight the way even like cavemen fought against the saber-toothed tiger. Is I'd imagine they would use something like a spear. And with a spear, it's a thrusting type of weapon. And you're going to keep it safe. You want maximum distance, and it's going to be more like a poking thing. Get away from me. And that's what you're going to be doing. So now in the bottom, I have the main skills for ancient fencing. And this is just based on logic, okay? Just logic. And once again, my Filipino martial arts background just made me think about this. It was just a natural progression. And then I started applying this to my actual skill training. So number one is the spear. You don't have to have a spear. You could once again be using a sword or a knife or even empty hand. But the idea is this attack that's very linear, okay? And you're not going to be as committed, because if you are, you're going to get hurt, right? So even with a knife, if I fully commit and they also have a knife and they fully commit, we could both die. So then boxing makes sense, where they're fighting and they're using the jab, right? So anyway, number two is, so now because they're doing this kind of attack, this linear attack, it only logically makes sense to have a defense for that. So to me, that's where the force-to-force block fits right in perfect. When I did an experiment with my students many times where I asked them to attack me and try to catch me off guard, my response when that happened was to swat the attack down. That's what came out naturally. And so that, to me, is the force-to-force block. So anyway, number three is, even though we both know, or you should know, that a fully committed attack with weapons is not, doesn't make sense. And even today, especially today's environment, where it's not legal to just get into a street fight, even without weapons, it's stupid to do that, to fully commit and, attack the person. So you wouldn't in your right state of mind. However, in a real life situation, for any reason, people might become unreasonable. Okay, and whether it's anger or fear, or they just don't care, or they're on drugs, or they're stupid, they might charge attack you. So rather than doing the more smart spear kind of fighting, they're charging in. So that's just a reality that you might face that. So since you might face that, it only logically makes sense that you have a defense to that. The defense to that is the same as number two, just more. Okay, everything you did for number two, you got to do it more. And so I'm talking about, like, your instead of just swatting it down, now it's more like a full-blown block. You have to maintain longer contact. Why? Because it's committed, and that attack will keep coming. It's not just a quick poke attack. It's a full-on attack that they're trying to pierce through you, So you're trying to create the distance. Well, at this point, you really, really need to create distance to the point where you just flat out running, because they're going to be charging. They're running at you. You need to run to keep the distance. So like I said, it's like what you do in number two, just more. Okay, so 4, 5, and 6 is, those three are counters. And the reason why it's 4, 5, and 6 is because counters is just a rule of thumb, something I picked up over the years in my full contact training. Counters are hard to do, period. It's less percentage to pull off. It's just a lower percentage to pull off. But they're great if you can do it. So they're worth it to study, but definitely understand that 1, 2, and 3 is your main. 4, 5, and 6 come later, and I wouldn't cheapen 4, 5, and 6 by constantly trying to go for those. I wouldn't do it. Those require meticulous setup. Those require that you're patient about it and you use them at the right time. So I would be careful about 4, 5, and 6. Anyway, so number 4 is a half counter, which is basically, it's not a full-blown counter, so you're attacking limbs. And you're attacking secondary targets, not primary targets. So this is essentially defang the snake, is number 4. Number 5 is you're attacking primary targets. So it's harder to do than number 4. And number 6 is the hardest of them all, and that is countering an actual charge. And the reason why I'm not including number 6 is, number 6 is a loophole, okay? But it depends on the opponent figuring it out or not. If the opponent charge attacks you and you defend against that, hopefully afterwards you go back to number 1, which is a spear type of attack, a linear attack, and that discouraged them to charge you again, or it makes it difficult for them to do it, right? But if they figure out for some reason your linear attack, your spear attack sucks, and they also go, you know what? All this guy does is when I charge in, they just defend. So there's no consequence. There's no reiteration back to me. So I can just keep doing a charge attack without any kind of accountability. I could just keep doing that and dominate here. So that's the loophole. And we don't want them to figure that out. And if they do figure that out, then you will need a charge counter to stop that loophole. So that's why number 6 is there, and it is the hardest. And if you look at the early UFCs, I feel like it follows exactly what I said here. The grapplers were very successful because they used the linear attack, which is a level change, and the linear attack, which is their double leg takedown. And for the longest time, the stand-up strikers didn't really have a good defense against that. And it took time until they were finally able to do number 6, which is a counter. So then you got to see stuff like where they would knock out the guy that was trying to take him down, or they would knock him out with a punch, or later on, like in Pride, you saw flying knees that would knock out the guy that was trying to take you down. So what I'm saying is it just took time, because it is harder, just like it says right here, So, yeah, I hope this makes sense. Now, one last thing that I need to mention is that, to me, Muay Thai kickboxing, a lot of people consider it like the best stand-up striking style. When you think of like something like a linear style, like Shotokan Karate, that is number 1, the spear. So that's your base. That's linear attack. You're talking about like American kickboxing, where they're standing more sideways. They do side kicks and stuff. Taekwondo type of fighting. Those are more linear. So that's more closer to the spear. And I believe a Muay Thai fighter stance on that is like, I hope you have a good spear linear attack, because if you don't, it's going to be an easy fight for me. So for your sake, I hope you're good at that. But even if you are, my style is geared to counter that. So I'm still at an advantage. So that's the way I see Muay Thai kickboxing, and why they've been so successful, when they fight against other stand-up strikers. To me, Filipino martial arts is kind of the same. Kia, Kali, Escrima, Arnis. If you truly understand the style, that's why it's important. I feel like it was important to go back to ancient fencing, and this is why I'm making this video here, mentioning this to y'all, is that Filipino martial arts, to me, Kia, Kali, Escrima, Arnis, is just like the Muay Thai kickboxing, where they do that, where it's like, I hope you have a good straight-on attack, because if not, once again, this is gonna be over quick. But if you do, it's okay, because my style is geared to counter that. That's why I go in 45-degree angles. That's why I slash more than I do stabs. So if you look at Kia, Kali, Escrima, Arnis, like the 12 angles of attack, look at how much more slashing there is compared to the stab. And then, I'm not saying we don't stab, because we do, but it's reduced. And same with Muay Thai kickboxing. They do have linear attacks, like look at their front push kick, but it's reduced greatly compared to, their other attacks. It's just not used as much as, especially as a devastating weapon. They don't really focus on that as much. So that's because they're designed to counter the linear fighter. And same to me with Kia. So anyway, I hope this makes sense. That's it for now. Thank you for listening, and take care, folks.